Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, we're starting a couple minutes late here. Had a few internet and setup issues, but we're good to go now. Um, hi, I'm Nick. Nick Corneal, the founder of Trainer Plus, and just doing connecting today. Focus today of today's podcast is going to be, realities moving forward for gyms. Just a quick intro for myself and Trainer Plus. So Trainer Plus is a fitness management tool. It's a web and mobile platform for trainers and gyms. Allows you to engage people in new ways, prescribe and track workouts, assessments, and manage all your follow-up. So essentially what we do is we create new ways for you to engage with clients and create new services, which are around programming and around training that are outside of sort of your 1 hour blocks. So if you haven't seen the podcast before, I always recommend checking out the first couple of editions. Talked about sort of realities of COVID in the first one, new services, and then new packages is what we've talked about in the last couple. So some of the material from the last couple podcasts that I'm going to reference today is going to be there. The focus today is, like I said, going to be for sort of gyms, what we see happening forward. It also translates to trainers, though, knowing what's going to happen in the industry and options as they move forward as well. So it's good for gym owners. It's good for trainers. I'm just trying to get some perspective here, especially now that we've had a couple of weeks of most places being in quarantine and lockdown, having stay-at-home orders basically, and it's becoming a little bit more clear how things are going to go, but it's still not super clear what's going to happen. So we're going to talk about that as we go through the podcast as well. Just sort of what I'm hearing from other people as well, and some of the things that are going on. So with that in mind, I'm just going to get up my presentation ready here. So just gonna move that. Sorry. Oh, keep clicking the wrong button here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's go back to the start here. So today I want to talk about, as you said, strategies for gyms. So how we can get members engaged, getting staff back to work, and starting to generate new revenues. So the reality is a few realities that we're facing here. The first one, in the short term, what we looked at, the obvious stuff, gyms are closed right now. Revenues for the most part have stopped for people. Staff has been laid off, and but expenses are still going. So gyms are still having to figure out, how do we pay the rent? How do we keep some stuff going while they've been closed down? And right now things have been, from the most part, for most gyms I'm hearing, revenues have been completely stopped. Even those that have started to get stuff rolling with their members again, they're doing a lot of stuff on credit, on future credit, stuff like that as well. So the other reality, obviously, clients and members are at home. There's economic uncertainty. So they're not sure what's going on with themselves and what's going on in the future, especially as the economy is moving how it is in most places. But they need to stay active with limited equipment and with a limited budget. So trainers and group instructors, a lot of you guys are sitting there unemployed right now, or at least you can no longer operate as you have. So the usual way of selling your time in 1 hour blocks, seeing people one-on-one, that has sort of stopped being right now. So the other reality is there's been a huge flood of content to the market. So a huge flood of stream content, Instagram, everything. There's been lots of free content that's come out. So people sitting at home have lots of access to it. They've discovered new YouTubers and everything else. So that's one thing. And there's also been, now virtual training has come. There's been some promotions on that, lots of talk about that. But both of these are hard to scale as much as I'm still seeing a lot of material out there that's about, now go online. This is a great opportunity. I think we just have to think about how those two things happen. Content is very hard to monetize unless you have a very, very large audience, and depending on how much you're charging for it. So it can work as a really great lead generation tool and a really great way of complementing other services. Virtual training as well right now is hard to scale. I'm hearing from a lot of trainers and gyms, as much as they're putting that out there, people still aren't sure about it and having the budget necessarily to go to, regular training sessions done through technology. And some people aren't super tech savvy or don't necessarily want to do like a FaceTime session. So both of those are hard to scale. A lot of the material out there right now is about, how you move your business online. There's some really good stuff out there. I'll mention some partners at the end in terms of places you can find some good content as well that will help in how you're doing it. So the first set, the last reality is that right now, that first set of challenges is kind of dealt with. Okay, what do I do? If I'm a gym owner, I've shut down, and dealt with this sort of the economic realities at the get-go. If I'm a trainer, I've pulled back. My clients as well maybe have paused, have pulled back, done all that stuff. So now this first set has set in. And now there's a need to change the focus so that we're thinking about how do we retain these clients and members? How do we start to actually grow revenue again? And that's the sort of what's happened here in the short term. So some long-term realities. And then this is where I think there's starting to be a picture of it, but I still think there's people, we're still figuring out how this is going to go realistically. There's different things that might be opened up sooner or later, all that other stuff. I, for one, am trying to be a realist about this in terms of what is probably going to happen. I see a lot of optimism in the fitness industry, which is good, which is very typical of the fitness professional attitude, gym owner attitude, that, things are going to come back and there's going to be people coming back. But I think we need to be really realistic about what's going to happen here over the next, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, with how this industry is going to adapt and how it's going to evolve. So there's definitely opportunities. I'm not saying there isn't. There's definitely opportunities, but it's really about being smart about how we approach these opportunities and how we approach them with a very realistic lens. So gyms, realistically, are not going to be reopening anytime soon in a lot of places, even for those economies that are opening around the world a little bit here in the coming weeks. The reality is that they won't be anytime soon. I think here personally in Canada, it's going to be some months probably before we see gyms open. And even when gyms do reopen, there's going to be new rules that are put on, both legally, and there's going to be new rules that are put on just socially in terms of how we interact, especially with social distancing in place. Hearing from a lot of gyms, obviously, that they're now looking at how do I have a gym that has limited capacity, has things that are 6 feet apart, or 2 meters apart. And there's going to be a different way of going, even when gyms can reopen. But that's still going to be some time before gyms are going to be able to be fully reopen again. It'll probably be one of the last things in the economy to reopen realistically, if we're just thinking realistically about how this works. So the other side of it is, members are going to be hesitant to come back. One, because they're now used to social distancing. People are going to be wary of getting out into big groups. So just the reality of how the psychology of it will work. So that's going to be one thing. They as well, for the foreseeable future, there's going to be a limit on disposable income. So this is where some things that they deem as luxuries might fall by the wayside. So that might be the gym membership, the membership dues they're paying. Personal training is definitely going to be a thing that is affected by this. So there's going to be, it's not just going to be a rush back once it comes. And so that's something that we've, got to think about, and how behavior is now being changed as people are at home and as people are finding ways of staying fit or not staying fit, depending on the person, as they've been at home. So that's one thing to think about in the long term. And in general, people will have an increased need for fitness support at the same time. So especially if they've been sitting at home, a lot of people are now trying to get back into routine, that this reality is kind of set in. So they need support to stay fit, active and fit. And when I say fitness support, I mean, a lot of people, content is not going to be enough. Maybe they're motivated enough to get started with. I know myself, even starting with home workouts and getting adapted, and even looking at some of my favorite YouTubers out there and stuff. It's tough to stay motivated on that front, but everyone is now knowing that they do have to be active and fit, not just because of the realities of sitting at home, and in a lot of cases, watching too much TV, diet's been adjusted, all that stuff, that routine's been upset, but also just because of being healthy. I think we all know that staying fit, being active is the best way of being healthy, keeping the immune system up. I think that's one thing that people have really faced right now, and are being realistic about, that they need to think more preventatively moving forward, especially keeping their own immune system up as COVID-19, is present and will continue to be present. And there could be other waves and things like that that kind of come in as well. So the reality is people need support, which in most cases means they need the help from a fitness professional. It's not just enough for them to get content. They will need a custom program for themselves based off of their goals, their equipment, based off of their motivations and what their habits are already. So there's accountability that's also needed, motivation that's going to be needed, and that's where there's an opportunity for gyms and fitness professionals to step up and fill that void, and make sure that we're doing as much to help as many people as possible. And I think that that's a thing that we need to be thinking about in the long term, is not just sort of how we've operated before and how we've made our money, thinking in that old paradigm, but really it's how can we help as many people as possible, and with a range of things that obviously is going to help our top line, so that we can make those revenues. And it's about thinking about, rather than having those that as many clients that train 2 or 3 times a week and are paying for sessions, it's can we get 10 people who are trading less frequently as we go, and thinking about that as support. So the other thing for you trainers out there, I know that you're thinking about this, gym owners, I think you're facing this reality, is that there's going to be a different dynamic between trainers and gyms once things do start up again. So there's with that, trainers are going to be more independent. Right now, a lot of them have been stepped away from the gym. If you're a trainer out there, this situation. You started to build your own business on the side. You've started to look at other options. But realistically, that there's some trainers that may not come back to the gym. And obviously there's others that will, but there's going to be a new dynamic. There was already, I would argue there's already some dynamic, some stuff going on there already where, how trainers and gyms are interacting, how revenues and things flowed between people. But there's going to be a different relationship there that we need to think about as gym owners. You need to think about, these trainers who have been, in some cases laid off, and are going to be, some are going to be anxious to come back and get going. Others are going to have figured this stuff out. Others, and I'm hearing a lot of this too, are also thinking about, changing professions too. So there's going to be a new dynamic. There's going to be opportunities there. There's going to be some challenges there as well. So the last reality long-term is that gyms still have the best ability to reach the largest audience of potential clients. So one, you've got a member base that's built up. Usually you've got a bigger megaphone to reach out there, bigger social channels, all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. Some trainers are awesome at building their own followings and getting out there and breaking through all the noise that's out there. But gyms still have the best ability, especially once they get opened up again and people do come back, to reach a larger audience of potential clients for trainers. So some trainers who may have been independent may have found it hard to get as many clients on their own and looking for other options, and we're coming back to a gym. But again, it's about finding that right balance between gyms and trainers. Okay, so the challenge right now that I see every gym trying to figure out, it's this multi-dimensional challenge, which is, one, how do I start generating revenue again, retain your members so that they're working with you now and they're going to come back in the future when you can get back open? How do you provide content and support that people need and can afford? And lastly, how do you get your staff back working and earning again? So it's all of that stuff, right, that gym owners are facing right now, and gym managers, and thinking about how do we approach this. In a lot of cases, you've gotten some content out there and that's been good, but now what's next? How do I actually get revenues going again? And significant revenues going again to pay things like the rents, and enough revenue as well that I can pay my staff and pay trainers who are going to be helping these people out. So how can we get into these win-win-win situations? We're going to talk about that today. So the opportunity here, if you can develop the right service offering, the right package of services, is you can get your revenue growing again without too much cost. You can engage members, clients, regardless of their budget and goals and access to equipment. You can get trainers working again and getting paid, and you can actually reach a larger audience than just your member base as well. Now, the other last point there is really important, is what you do today and what you set up and get rolling. Can you make that sustainable when you can reopen, and in the ways that you're going to be able to reopen? So I think that's really important to think about, because the old way we've all thought about selling these packages of training in sessions in 1 hour blocks to 30-minute blocks, doing group training, one-on group training as well. It's going to be challenges to that with social distancing, different things like that. So we've really got to think as gym owners here, how do we do stuff today that gets this win-win-win situation? So members get the support they need, trainers get working again, and you're making enough money that you're actually being able to pay your bills and maybe even make a profit. So how do you get those win-win-wins that work today, but as importantly, as the gym starts to reopen, probably in stages until we do, if we ever get back to, what we were used to, which probably won't, there's going to be a new normal when we start. How is it that what you do today is sustainable both today and in the long term? And this is where we have to really be realistic and start rethinking, how we have sold training, where the different revenue streams are. And what I mean by that is a lot of gyms have always depended on those membership dues being the thing, whether people came to the gym or not. That's the thing that paid the bills. And training and other auxiliary stuff is where profit came from, realistically. And in some cases, gyms, you see trainer engagement rates of member bases anywhere. I've heard anything from 2% all the way up to 10%. The gyms that are really good at engaging their members, you get 10%, unless you're, a training boutique, in which case you have a much higher percentage, because that's more what the business model is kind of based on. But for those regular, the gyms that are more focused on being bigger gyms, medium and large gyms, the revenue has come from membership dues, and that's going to be different. Or we're going to have to look at, if somebody's a member, what is the value we're adding to them that is not just opening the doors and giving them access to the facility, especially if that access may be limited in the future. So how do we build something that's really sustainable today and as we go forward? And I think that's really the important way to think about it. Now that the dust has settled, now that you've figured out that first wave of what to do with the gym shut down, now that you've probably put some content out there and seen how people are interacting with it, maybe you've offered virtual training and seen what the uptake is on that. How do we build stuff that's sustainable? So I'm just going to really go through this briefly. If you want to get a deeper dive on these things, podcast number 2 really focuses on the philosophy of how you change if you can help into how. So this is, a philosophy that I've talked about for years, but also put out on these podcasts, which is, making sure that in the short term, you're able to provide lots of options for people. You make sure you have regular follow-up scheduled. So you prescribe to need, prescribe to goal, give them options, let them choose their path initially, build the value of why working with a trainer more often is going to be better. Everyone knows that. If you can say to them, if you could work with a trainer 6 days a week, you'd be better, right? And everyone agrees to that. So the goal is to find the support that they need that fits within their budget and their schedule, and then know that if you're interacting every 14 days, 30 days, to have that conversation at the end of each phase or each reassessment, then you can look at what they've done and, scale up and down appropriately as needed. So that's it. So that's changing if into how. That way, every person you talk to, if you've got free options, low cost options, and more involved options, everyone you talk to, you can add some value to. You can help them in some way, and then it goes into that caregiver role of the next 30 days. What did they do? Was it enough? Do they need to move up? Do they need to move down? And you can have an ongoing conversation that supports them all the way to their goals and beyond. So that's the philosophy of it. In terms of services, you want to offer that range from free stuff to low cost, different versions of programming. So with Trainer Plus, what we see sort of 3 versions of programming sold in different ways. One is just like a monthly consult, send them a program from the library that's based off their goals, let them be on their own. Service number 2 that we see is that program, but then oversight, in a tool like Trainer Plus or spreadsheets. Obviously, Trainer Plus is designed for that. So having that oversight where the trainer's coming in every couple of days or every week, seeing the feedback, seeing the results, and making changes. Right. And the other one is custom programming, where they are building a custom program, they're giving them the oversight, and then there's either a session to show them what's going on or a check-in session as they're going. And so that's programming, and that's a value added to just, giving a workout that they're going to get from the internet or that they're on their own, because with that programming service, you are still delivering some form of accountability, because when they track, you can see it, they feel accountable to it. right? And you're also giving them your knowledge, which is the most important thing. Most of these people might have an idea how to do a squat, might look what workout is good on there, but they don't necessarily know what they should be doing. And that's what the value trainers bring to the table, and gyms, if you've got trainers, that they bring to the table is that applied knowledge, knowing what they should do now based off of their current fitness, and then how that plan needs to adapt over time. And that's really where selling programming as a service is delivering the full value of training, but without taking all the time of all those sessions. And then of course you also want to have a service where it's that program, it's that oversight, but you also have that face-to-face time as well, and that can be a more expensive program. So how do you package it? I've been really recommending to people that you reach out to your member base and look at offering consults as a first starting point, whether that's your admins who are still on staff, calling out to those people, calling each member one-on-one, saying, how are you doing? What are you doing with your fitness? What do you need? How can we help? And let them tell you, and they'll probably give you a pretty good idea of what's needed. But this way your trainers can also do the same thing, or use a trainer. You can call all your clients and give them that consult. You can, go through and review options with them, talk about these new options you're offering and these new packages, and then steer them to some free stuff, some of the free content if they're not ready to purchase anything yet today. Package number 2 is, like I said, in these different programming versions. So giving them some version of programming with oversight. And number 3 right now would be doing virtual sessions or virtual check-ins with a combination of programming, right? So you want to mix those free services with the virtual, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, some practical ideas. And that's where you've got different packages that can fit different things, and kind of move with it that way. So again, if you want more of a deep dive into these things, specifically the philosophy, different services, different packages, then check out, our last couple podcasts, where I go into a lot of detail about these things as we go. Okay, so if you've got this philosophy, you've got your range of packages out there. You've got your free stuff that you're doing, you've got your lower cost options, you've got your virtual training, which is sort of more higher cost, and you've packaged them in different ways. Hopefully you've packaged something that's around the same as your membership dues. So how do you get it out there, right? The message that you need to get out there is that you've got support options for any budget, any goals, any available equipment. Talk to us. That's the general message you need to get there. It's a different value proposition than you're used to, where the value proposition the fitness industry's been used to is like how great they are, how much you can help, trying to get them moving more and more, all that other stuff. This is slightly different. This is just saying to them very literally, like, hey, we've got these new options. Doesn't matter what your circumstance is, just talk to us. You're especially for gym owners, you're a member, we want to help. We've got stuff, we've got free stuff for you, talk to us. We've got lower cost stuff. We've got, more involved stuff. If you've got a budget, if you're finding you do need some more help from a trainer, we've got that too. So we can help no matter what. Talk to us. That's the main message that's got to get out there. How do you get it out? So adding a page to your website, this is a starting point. Talk about this new message and these new programming options. Make sure it's really clear. Maybe you have a new dedicated page to it. And again, you probably want to make sure the framing of how you put it out there is important as well. So you don't say virtual training, because people just think that is one-on-one sessions, but done through FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, right? You've got programming options, you've got online training options. Those words are really key to being used the right thing as you go. Obviously, you've got your email list. You've probably been in touch with your members, so sending an email blast out, blasting it out through your social posts, letting people know, hey, we've got new services. Our trainers are ready to help. We've got new stuff. We've got free stuff too. Just, come check it out. Come talk to us. Direct them to your webpage or direct them to a contact number. Ask your friends and family, or ask your members, to tell your friends and family. So even if they're not members of your gym, that's the beauty of these new options online. You can help them still, right? You can still give them a program. You can still get them support from a trainer. So they don't need to be a member. So this can get out to a larger audience that way. Your members, and I'm hearing a lot of this from gyms, and especially gyms who've put out something to their member base, but some Trainer Plus customers who have now started to offer these online options. there's been a really positive response to this, right? A lot of members, they're loyal to the gym if they've been there for a while. They want to help the gym. They want the gym to be there when things do reopen. So they do want to help support you the same way that people are supporting their local restaurants, supporting their local stores, supporting their all those local small businesses. So don't be afraid to ask your members for that help. Say, hey, we've got these options. We want to get things going. We want to continue to, make sure the gym is there for you and ready for you when you're ready to come back. We also want to make sure that people have the help they need. We want our trainers to be busy and helping as many people as possible, stay active, stay fit, and stay healthy in a preventative way. So get that message out there. Let your members also, share it. Don't be afraid to ask them to help, ask them to get the message out there for you. I'm sure they all have a friend or a family member who is probably needing some help right now, who might not have been into fitness before and is finding the isolation, and the quarantining, the isolation, finding it difficult, finding that it's, there's mental health issues that people are fighting now as reality sets in. There's obviously fitness issues. There's weight gain issues. There's all that other stuff. So don't be afraid to ask your member base to help you get that out there. The other thing is, if you are putting content out there, especially video content, make sure you mention this. All right. It's something I'm getting used to with this YouTube podcast of make sure you're mentioning the stuff you have, but every time that you're putting something out that people are consuming, just message it. Make sure you're having a consistent message. So at the end of that class that you've streamed, say, make sure you say to your members, or make sure the trainer knows to your members, hey, we've got options to help. This class is great. Ask us about how we can complement it. Ask us about our options that we've got. Right. So that's a key thing in terms of ways of getting this message out there. So in terms of execution, as a gym manager, and this is as well goes for trainers as well. Okay. Step number one, choose your tools. Okay. You're going to need to have different tools to do this. So first one is, how are you getting video out there, right? Are you using your website? Are you using YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, however it is? Which tool are you using to get that content out there, or hopefully across a couple mediums, so that people can consume it in different ways? So choose that tool, right? B, which tools are you using for your video sessions, right? So are you using FaceTime or WhatsApp, or as most people have moved over to Zoom and started using Zoom like I'm doing right now for this podcast, which is your tool that you're going to be using for video sessions? So that's the secondary tool that you need to figure out. Next, how are you going to prescribe and track programming? Obviously, I come from a bias here. I've, having built Trainer Plus, having put my energy and investment into how Trainer Plus is used for this, to prescribe workouts, have them track, be able to see that feedback, see that follow-up, take action on it. These are all key value propositions. You can do this through spreadsheets, through something like a Google Sheet where you've got it. It's a little bit more work, but you can still do it. And it's a low cost, or it's really free to do that. So what tool are you using to prescribe that workout and have them track so that you can see it and you can take action on it? Because that's part of the value proposition of programming. You need to be able to see it and take action and keep them accountable to it. So which tool are you using for that? Next up, how are you managing that regular follow-up? Again, that's why we built this into Trainer Plus, so that we can automate that follow-up. They know it when it's time. Your trainers know it. Managers, you can see when people are overdue as well in our enterprise version. So we know how important that follow-up is. When I was a gym manager, I had binders of this that I managed all the spreadsheet in binders. So you can do it with spreadsheets. You can do it with calendars to put stuff out, a month out, however it is. But you want to make sure you have a tool that's managing that follow-up, or some system that's managing when those next touch points are, when those next check-ins are. Next up, how are you processing payments? Okay, I think this is one thing that's important. For you trainers, it's a little bit, there's different tools out there that you can use, whether it's just straight e-transfers, PayPal, things like that. For gyms, you really need to think about this. How are you processing payments? Your club management system, most of them make their money on building transactions. So they're pretty motivated to get that going again. So, you can see how you can work with them as well to set up new options and to get money rolling through the machine again, right? If not, there's all those other options. There's so many options for processing payments right now, from Stripe that you can build into your website, to using PayPal, using Square, using different tools for that. But you need to make sure that you've got a tool for that as you go. And lastly, as a gym owner and manager, how are you going to manage your staff and that oversight? So how are you going to make sure that they're delivering the value to those clients, to those members? How are you going to manage the oversight that you need to have to see that they're giving them the right things, they're checking in at the right times, they're not missing that follow-up date? So again, my bias is something that we built into Trainer Plus. That's something that is already in our enterprise version, where managers can see their trainers, can see the program their trainers have, can see those key dates, like when is the program ending and a new phase is starting, when are they due for a new consult or a reassessment. These are the two real key dates, and how long it's been since somebody's tracked a workout. These are the three things that are, the most important to see as a trainer, and the most important to see as a manager, to make sure your trainers are staying on top of things. So how are you managing that? How are you seeing that? Because if you're trying to call every single client member, it's going to take too much time as it is. So step number one in executing this is you need to choose these tools. You need to make sure you know them and your staff is familiar with them, and you're good at having, all of these things out there to provide that range of options. Again, my last little plug for it, we do 3 of these things, so if you can keep it into a few tools as opposed to having 6, that's going to be a lot easier to manage your life and manage things, the more automated things are right now. Okay, step number 2, you need to establish which services you're going to offer and what their prices are going to be. So decide, have that free offer, and then decide what they're going to be, right? And I think it's really important that when you think about services and the prices, that you find something that's about the same price as membership dues, so that it's related. It's really just like, instead of your membership, you're going to get this instead. You're going to get training instead of a membership. Here's how this works. So think about your offering, think about what the prices are, have that in place, have an idea of what you're going to do with that before you kind of get out and going. Number 3, again, something important to think about ahead of time is, how are you going to compensate your staff for these services? So sure, you figured out what your members might pay, and you also need to figure out, how are you going to pay your staff for this? So if trainers are coming back, here in Canada, there's the emergency relief benefits. So a lot of trainers have stepped back, they're taking that money. So how are you going to make sure you're paying them enough that you're going to get them back in there engaged? How does the split work, right? If you're making $100 off from a programming service, how are you splitting that with the trainer? Or are you setting hourly rates and saying, we think it's about this much time, which is a little bit tougher in this circumstance. It's easier just to set up a split, but you need to think about how people are going to be compensated for this, and they're going to want to know anyway. So you need to communicate that. I think for most trainers right now, they want to be working and they want to be earning. So just make sure that we're doing something that's fair. And the other thing to think about, depending on where you're located and how the government has reacted, here in Canada, there's a wage subsidy. So there's a possibility that you could even get 75% of the wages that you're paying for this stuff covered by the government, which leaves a whole lot more margin for the gym to make revenue and make profit that can go towards expenses. So think about that compensation piece. Step number 4, design that marketing plan, right? It doesn't have to be too fancy, but you want to have something that's a consistent message. I'm hearing, we was speaking with a gym owner yesterday about the little bit of a disconnect between the marketing department, and the fitness department who's on the ground doing this. And so a lot of you people that are listening to the podcast right now, you might be fitness managers or trainers that have a group of it. There might be that disconnect. Just make sure that there's a consistent message that's going out. You've got a plan, you've got some posts ready, you've got some things ready that you can just get this message out there, direct them to where these services are. And if you need, again, it's probably it'll be attached in the description. We've got a template that I have that's just like new online services, explains them really quickly, has a couple sample price points. You can take that template, you can reconfigure it for yourself, put your logo on it, whatever, send it out. Just make sure you've got that marketing plan in place and how you're going to deliver a consistent message, because people might not move today, but the more that they hear from you and they hear, hey, I can help no matter what, just talk to me. Then in the future, when they need it, or if they get bored of that class that they're streaming online, or they start to notice the weight gain, then get it out there, get that message out there consistently. The next one, number 5 here, really important, have a training place in place for your staff, so that they make sure that they know how to use all the tools. We have seen, and I have heard some really great stories about, now people have moved into tech. Let's be serious. Fitness people, trainers, even gym owners and managers are not the most tech savvy group of people, as I've learned over the years of running Trainer Plus. So, but they are a diligent group about learning new things, training, continuous education. It's part of the fitness industry. This is just a new way that we're all having to evolve right now. We're having to learn tools that maybe we've said we wanted to learn and we haven't yet. And now we're having to do it. We're figuring out how to do virtual classes. We're figuring out how to use Zoom to interact with people. We're figuring out how to use maybe, Google tools, whatever it is. But make sure that if you're going to have these tools in place, that you've got a training plan in place for your staff, that you've got a way that you can show them how to do it, or there's group sessions. This is one of the first things we do with Trainer Plus when we get gyms going. Sure, we give them the tool, and I'd like to think that it's so easy to use, anybody can just get started. But I always push the gym owners and managers, like, let's get the training session set up right away with your staff after they've used it for a day or two, so that we can run through it. They can ask questions, make sure they feel really confident in the tools that they're using, in our case, in our tool, before they start really engaging the full member base. So just make sure that you've got that training plan in place. Number 6, make a schedule for content and outreach. So if you are delivering classes and sessions like that are going to complement these programming, right? If you're going to do outreach, if you're going to call every single member, make sure you've got a schedule for it. When are you going to call them? How often are you going to call them? Who's going to do those calls? If you're running classes, what classes are you running and when? Just make sure you've got a schedule, at least for the next couple of weeks. That way, the other stuff you do can really complement it well, and you can make sure you've got it coordinated. And last step, most importantly, just get started. Okay, just start putting some stuff out there. Maybe you've thought about moving to online options. Maybe you've thought about doing stuff, but now the reality set in. You need to do something, and you never are going to know until you just get something out there and let your members tell you what they do and learn accordingly. For those who aren't familiar with it, this is lean startup methodology. It's big on the tech sphere. I highly recommend reading some stuff about this, especially right now as we're adapting and we've got to be able to move faster. There's a great book called Lean Startup by Eric Ries, if you ever want to read it. But the premise is, the most important thing to building a new business or building a new service isn't necessarily, you're not going to get it perfect the first time. And the more time you spend planning and trying to get it perfect, the less it's probably going to go well. The most important thing is that you get it out there, right? It's getting in this feedback cycle of build it, get it out there, measure how people are using it, learn from that, and iterate on it, and then do it again, right? The faster you can get that feedback loop moving of putting stuff out, learning from your members, figuring out what they need, changing, adapting, and getting that feedback loop moving, the faster you can get this moving, the quicker you're going to get to that sweet spot of what works, what really works, how you can start to grow your business and get it going. So just get started, just get stuff out there. Let's, as much as I'm saying, have these steps, give some thought to these steps first, have these sort of stuff in place, but don't overthink it. Just get it out there, get your members kind of going. So that's sort of this key steps to executing this. Okay. In terms of some other considerations to think about. 1, how are you using a lead management strategy or tool to optimize your funnel from different channels? So make sure you have something that even, your members is one thing, but if you're starting to get stuff out there, you're going to get leads, and just make sure you've got something as it is. I think this doesn't need too much talking. I think most people understand this one. So point number 2 to consider, take your existing offerings and classes and think about how you can put more value added services to complement them, right? This goes for trainers as well. If you run a boot camp, if you run a 30-day challenge, which is a whole other thing to think about in another podcast, if you run a yoga class, even if you do boxing, whatever it is that you run, think about those and how you can complement them. Let's just take the last one I mentioned, a boxing class. I was talking to somebody who runs a boxing studio the other day. So they're doing boxing training and some in-house stuff, but obviously everybody who's a boxer needs some strength work. And everyone who's doing boxing, maybe they're doing shadow boxing at home right now, they need a strength program that goes with that, right? That person who's attending your HIIT class or your boot camp on Monday and Wednesday and Friday, they need a strength program, a core program, a recovery program to do on the other days, right? So think about your existing offerings, what you're putting out there, what your gym does well, and how programming and work from a trainer would complement that and work with it, right? And how you can communicate that message. The next thing to consider, think of other channels, right? This is really, really important. So you've got your members, great, but what other channels can you get out there? right? I'm hearing really great stories about corporate wellness. I may do a whole pod about this because it's just something I'm really passionate about and know well, and something we've done a lot of work on at Trainer Plus. But we're hearing gyms who are reaching out to business partners because those businesses are also facing that challenge, right? Their employees are working at home. The way that they've supported wellness in the past is changed. I have seen from big companies to small, and it's interesting because some of my partners, some of our customers, they're now putting stuff out there, right? Hey, employees who are at home, here's a few wellness tips. Here's a stretch you can do. Here's a quick workout you can do at home, right? So companies are now thinking about how do they support wellness with their people working remotely. Well, ta-da, you've got content, you've got programming, you've got all these things that are a great thing for their company to do, especially if you can start with something low cost for them or free for the company, costs very little for them, costs nothing for them to get the message out that you have support options that fit their employees. This is a great channel to think about in how you're going to structure that. The other ones to think about is healthcare, right? Obviously, doctors' offices are a little bit tough right now with everything going on, but physio, rehab, how is that as a channel if you've got relationships with that? Sports teams is another one, or sports in general. People are trying to figure out how to stay in shape for that softball league that's starting up in the spring, how they're going to make sure they're in shape for their golf when the courses reopen, all that other stuff. So think about these channels, and the thing about having trainers who can offer programming and offer different stuff at different costs is you can help any of those members of that golf club. You can help any team member of a certain team or in a league or something like that. So it's a whole other channel that you can think of tapping into. So think about places which we've always thought of, like how do we get into these, or maybe we've got some good relationships with these things, but now you've got a really solid offering to reach out there and get more people coming in to help your programming and getting your trainers back to work or getting yourself back to work. The other thing to consider, don't be afraid to offer things right away that provide value, right? There's so much free content out there right now. Just give some value right away. The best thing we can do as fitness professionals is make sure they understand the value of what we have, right? Is yes, we've got content. Yes, you can find that, but it's how I'm going to make that content for you, right? How I'm going to be able to help you given who you are, and then hold you accountable to it, motivate you to it, and adapt it over time. So don't be afraid to give something and make sure you're providing value right away in that first interaction, and know that you can talk to them in the future. Lastly, really think about how are these things going to go as your gym opens up again, right? So if your gym's going to open up, social distancing still in place, and less people can come in, how do these services that you're doing, how are they going to work? And how are these offerings going to work as your gym starts opening up again? If you do this right, if you've got all these options and you've got new channels that you're opening up to, when you open up, you can adapt to this, right? Maybe you can have less people in your gym, which means they're coming into your gym once a week, once a month. They're getting their program from your trainer, and they're still executing it at home, at their home gym, whatever it is, right? But you've still got a relationship, you've still got a member there, and you've still got a revenue there as it goes. But just think about how these offerings are gonna evolve as your gym opens up again. So that's it for my slideshow for the presentation on sort of gyms and how it goes. So the most important thing here as trainers, as gym owners especially, is you've got to do something, right? You've got to get to do something now, get something moving, thinking about now and the future. Okay, now that the dust is settled, we've realized this new normal, this new reality. Now we got to think about practical things to do and just getting stuff going, right? So I'm going to add some stuff to the links in terms of stuff I've mentioned. We did make a playbook for gyms to approach COVID. It covers a lot of the stuff we have gone over today in some more detail even, and diving in. So I'll include that in the links below as well. I just want to mention a few things for gym owners, especially in Canada, but also around the world, but especially in Canada, a few partners that I want to mention in terms of where you can find some really good content and some really good stuff for support. Number one, if you're a Canadian gym owner, be checking out the FIC, the Fitness Industry Council. They're putting out lots of great content. They're really helping, they're really sharing, they're lobbying the government for rent relief. If you're a gym owner, there's great information coming out every week. So tune into the FIC, get connected to them, get on the email chain, whatever it is. Really important as a gym owner here in Canada, and even as a trainer, it'll give you an idea of like what's going on behind the scenes and what's happening in the industry as well. CanFit Pro, they're a partner of ours. We're the tech partner for CanFit Pro, the biggest certifying body here in Canada. They're putting out lots of great content that's very practical right now about insurance for online training and things to consider, about online and moving online, about education and ongoing stuff that you can do right now. So check out canfitpro.com. If you need some help, if you have some questions, especially as trainers, there's lots of good stuff out there. I know a lot of our users and some of you viewers are CanFit Pro trainers, but the new website has gotten lots of stuff out there, and they're evolving and continuing to put content out there. So check out CanFit Pro. As well, NPE, the Net Profit Explosion people, their business coaching. They've been putting out really good content. I really like it. It's really practical. It's not as much on the like, go make $1 million right now. They have some good stories of people who have really adapted well, but they're really trying to give a practical view of how to do this right, how to do it smart. They've got some good content. That's NPE, check it out. As well, our partners at Precision Nutrition, they've started a coalition of groups of all these companies that have come together to help the fitness industry deal with COVID. They're putting podcasts out or webinars out, podcasts every Thursday. So check out, I think from Precision Nutrition, you can have it. I'll also include the links to the coalition and the ongoing podcasts they've got. So a few places to look for resources. I mean, I've heard that URSA's got some really good stuff out there. Haven't had a chance to check it out myself, but there's now the discussion is starting to change and be more realistic. So check out those partners if you need some more content, if you need some more stuff, especially as a gym owner manager, keeping on top of what's happening as you go. So lastly, so make sure you check the description. I'll include those links as we go. If you're a Trainer Plus user, please give us feedback, discussion, what you need. Let us know. You know, we love hearing from you. Tell me what you might want in the podcast in terms of content or stuff that we need to do with the app. Anything it is, we love hearing from you. It's the most important thing for us as we continue to adapt the platform. So please don't be shy. support@trainerpl.us. Email went out this morning about new features we have released. We're building. We're working on new content. Everything fixes, because of course technology is always fun and we've got to fix stuff as we go. So check that out and make sure not to be shy. If you aren't a user and you're listening to these podcasts and you've got an idea, you own a gym or yourself as a trainer, obviously check it out. You can sign up for free. So check it out at trainerpl.us, our website, and get rolling so that you can see how you can do that. Please keep sending us. We got tons of really good ideas on exercises people need. That's all gone into a video shoot that we're going to be doing soon. We still want more workouts, at-home workouts. Let us know if you've got some good ones in your library at Trainer Plus, or if you got them on a PDF or whatever. Please send them to us. We've got to keep creating our library as you go. If you are a gym owner, manager, whatever it is, we have options. We've got a special offer for COVID. I'll include it again in the description. You can find it on our website as well. We've got the playbook as well. But either way, let's talk to us. We can get you set up really quickly. We can get your whole staff set up. We can get you rolling with some of the stuff that was talked about today. Lastly, please help support us at Trainer Plus and get this word out. So subscribe to our YouTube channel here, like this video below. Please share this with your networks. If you found it useful, if you found there's some good information here, share it with a gym owner share it with a trainer help us get the word out. It helps us. It helps us get this content out to more people. The goal is to help the industry, not just survive, but hopefully thrive through all of this. So please help us by sharing this, sharing it on your social channels, subscribing and liking the video, and continuing to give us good ideas on how we can help you. So thanks. That's it for today. And hopefully I will hear from a lot of you soon, and we'll be back next week. Lots of topics to cover. Might go through some of the realities of the economics of the industry and how that works, some really neat numbers, and how COVID is going to affect what was happening, for the past couple of years and how that goes. Also going to look at having some guests on and starting to get some people here that can talk about their experience and their perspective. So having some of that stuff lined up. So look out for our next podcast as you go, but obviously you subscribe, you'll know when it's coming. So thanks, stay safe, everybody. And good luck getting it out there and helping more people stay healthy and fit and active.